So today what we're going to do is we're quickly going to review how to create our own traffic light. So we did this a couple of days ago, so I need to remind you how to do it. So here's what we got to do. The first thing we got to do is we got to get a breadboard. So once we get a breadboard, we're getting the larger breadboard. We're going to pull it on, and then what we have to do is we have to get an Arduino. And we're looking for the Arduino R3 specifically. And then make sure you turn your Arduino sideways so that you can have access to the pins on the right side of our Arduino. Okay, now what we're going to be doing is we're going to be using pins 11, 12, 10, 11, and 12 in order to basically use this. Now on your Arduino you have access to basically pins 13 through 2. Okay, pins 13 through 2. So you can use that to help build up your Arduino traffic light. So in your traffic light you need a light, right? So let's go and get an LED. So I'll use an LED. Now you'll notice that the cathode is on the left side. Now we're going to be taking power from pin 10 and we're going to feed it not to the cathode, but we have to feed it to the anode of our light. So let's do that right away. So now we're going to take power from pin 10, we're going to force it into the rail that has pin 10. Sorry, that has the anode. So now the next thing that we got to do is we got to make sure that we have this specific diagram here. Okay, so from pin 10 we connect it to our LED, but then we need a resistor that's connected to the ground, right? Now let's go and make sure that we have an extra ground for the entire breadboard, because your assignment today will be to create your own, say, initials on the breadboard, which will require a lot of resistors. Okay, now here's what we're going to do. We're going to go and click here, our minus, on our horizontal rail, and we'll click there as well. Now remember that we had to have a resistor. Let's go and put our resistor on here. So resistor. So we're going to click our resistor, and we're going to drag our resistor. Now we can put our resistor directly along this rail here where our anode, where our cathode is, and we can connect it directly to our ground. Now let's say that you want to readjust this. You could have arranged your resistor to be along here, and then we just connect it to there, right? We don't need to do that because this is long enough. So I'm just literally just going to turn this around, and I'm going to connect it directly to this. Now in case you want to make sure, just make sure that your resistance is set to 1 k omega, which is kilo ohm. Okay, so now that I've got that, now we got to do, now that we've got our ground to the top and bottom, so we can have extra places to put our resistors if we need to ground our wires, what we got to do is we got to ground our wire directly to where our pins are coming from. So you notice our pins are coming from this side here, right? So if it's coming from this block of stuff here, we got to ground it to here in order for it to register on the machine. Now in order to program your machine, right, essentially what we got to do is we got to go to block and text, and then once we've gotten a text, what we're going to do is we're going to set the pin mode for our blocks, for our code to be output. Now let me explain to you what's happening here. This section up here is like part of a book. Coding is part of a book, and we have two parts of the book. We have the setup part of the book, and then we have the thing that says loop forever and do this stuff. Okay, now in order to tell the pin to be a pin that goes and does output, i.e. gives power to something, i.e. goes and gives power from here all the way over to there, right, we got to tell it, hey, set pin 10 to output. Then what we're going to do inside our loop in order to get it to do stuff for our code is we got to set each time we got to turn on the pin, and that turns on light. Now, it'll wait for 1,000 milliseconds, which is 1 second, right? And then we have a digital write, and then here's what we're going to do. We're going to digital write 10 low, right? 10 low basically says turn off the pin. That's it, which means it turns off the light. Okay, so as soon as I turn off the light goes out. So now, in order to test it, we just have to make sure that our code is within each of the blocks for each chapter. You notice how the blocks have little squigglies, and then once you're done, you just run your simulation. And if it runs, now you've literally got your first light being lit up. Now, to do the next light, here's what we're going to do. We're going to stop the simulation, and in order to cut down on the work that we got to do, since we need a light, we click on our light, Control C, and then Control V to paste, and then we just move the new one over. We're going to change it from red to yellow, and then we're going to use pin 11, paste it over. Then we're going to click here for our resistor. We're going to copy it, Control V to paste it, and then copy it to our next light. So now that I've done that, and I hit simulation, run the simulation, our red light goes on, but our yellow light doesn't go on. So in order to get our yellow light to go on, what we got to do is we got to do exactly the same thing that we did, where we set up pin 10 for output, right? So now we got to set up pin 11 for output. In order to do that, we just go pin mode 11, output. And then this set up pin 11 for output. So now that we've got pin 11 set up for output, right, we still, if we run it, nothing happens because we haven't told the machine to. So now what we have to do is we have to do exactly the same thing that we did with our previous code. Now, before, when we did our digital writes to turn on our stuff, so we did digital write, but instead of 10, we're going to use digital write 11, and we're going to say, all right, turn it on. And then we're going to delay for 1,000. We're going to wait for 1,000 seconds, and then we're going to do the same thing for our. Once we've delayed and like shone for 1,000 milliseconds, what we're going to do now is we're going to turn off the light. So now we're turning off pin 11, turning it to low, and then delay 1,000 again, and we are done. So once we run this simulation, what you'll see is we got the red light and then the yellow light starts. So now, if I do this again, we can have the following for pin 12. So let's go and do that for pin 12 right away. So we're going to go and take a wire from pin 12, bring it over here. We're going to copy this, bring it here, change its color to green, paste it in, and then finally what we have left to do is we just got to code the simulation. So to code the simulation, all we're going to do is copy all this digital write stuff and delay stuff from here to here and change pin 11 to pin 12. So now we have a complete traffic light. Red, yellow, and then green, and then back to yellow. And this will go on forever. Now remember, when you're doing your coding, I want you to make sure that you write everything within each code block. If you write something out of the code block, then you have broken code. So for example, if I had taken this and put it, say, here, the code would break. Start the simulation, the code would break. And the reason why is because that code, that instruction that we had, is not within our loop function. Okay? And that's it. All right. Good luck, guys. Have a great evening.